What happens when years of high level performance intersect with fertility? We often talk about strength, resilience, and pushing limits in sport, but we spend less time exploring how years of training may shape hormonal health and fertility, particularly as women get older. Welcome. I'm Tierra Duncan, and this channel is all about women's health, from hormones and nutrition to fitness and stress. Real science, real conversations, and tools to help you thrive. Today, I'm joined by Emily Schelberg, 4 times Masters World Champion track cycling, 2 times U.S. Elite National Medalist in track cycling, a former Team USA skeleton athlete, and Marine Corps veteran, to talk about fertility after years of high-level sport and her recent pregnancy journey at 40. Welcome.
Hi, thanks, Tierra. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm excited to talk to you today. Can you share a little more about your athletic background and the level of training you've maintained over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been an athlete. I started in high school with track and field, made it through to like the state level competition with that. Right after high school, I decided to join the United States Marine Corps. So obviously high level fitness there. From boot camp, really straight into a deployment, and then came back. And I went to Penn State University. I ended up being a walk-on for their track and field team, as well as their crew team. So I basically competed all through my college career. Once I finished with college, I got really excited by doing things like CrossFit. So I got interested in doing that, where I got to meet you, which is great.
Yeah.
After CrossFit, I kind of felt a little bit of lacking in terms of competition at a higher level. So I tried out for the US Skeleton program, and I was on Team USA for 4 years. I got to compete nationally on the American Cup. I had a pretty bad accident that kind of pushed me out of that sport, but I immediately found track cycling later in life. So I started track cycling at about 34 years old. And I've been doing that up until this past October. So October, I finished with my last world championship where I won gold and silver for both of my races. And I plan to get back to it after this pregnancy.
That is an impressive list of things. I don't even know, like, some of the things that you've done. I wouldn't even thought about track cycling or skeleton. It's just so impressive. How did you even find or kind of get into those elite sports?
So for skeleton, I actually got involved on a dare. One of our friends at the gym that we went to kind of dared me to go out for the tryouts. They have like what they call a combine, essentially all throughout the country. And so I trained for it, and I went and competed. And actually, I kind of encountered a little bit of ageism with that, because the coach for the team thought that I was quote unquote too old to compete, but I beat everybody at the competition. So they had to take me. So it really just was about looking online and seeing what's available and getting involved. With track cycling, it was more, there was a former athlete on the skeleton team who had also competed on track cycling. And so when I retired from skeleton, I looked into it. And so it seems like when you're involved in the Team USA sports, there's more of like what we would call like a lateral move in the military, where you have access to different competitions or tryouts that maybe you wouldn't if you hadn't been part of those programs.
Yeah, that's really cool. I guess the connections you make, the athletes you meet, the coaches, there's this whole community of people that really are really fit and continue to want to compete. So when did fertility or hormonal health kind of start coming into the picture with the level of training you were doing?
So it's actually kind of embarrassing as a healthcare provider. I work as a nurse practitioner in sports medicine, and really my fertility interests didn't really start in relationship to my training until I was looking to get pregnant at 39 years old. So I'm one of those athletes that I never really had a concern with my period. I had normal cycles. My fertility seemed to be intact. We got pregnant very easily the first time around in my early 30s. And so it wasn't really a consideration for me throughout my training. It really didn't affect the things that I did for competition or for fitness. So really, we started to kind of consider what my fertility was at 39 solely based on my age. And I'm really glad that I did, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have recognized that I was having concerns with just normal cycles in terms of actual ovulation. And I wouldn't have known if I hadn't started looking at it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, right, if you don't ovulate, you don't get pregnant. Like that, that's kind of it. But and that seems maybe like an obvious thing to say to someone that's been through this journey. But I think I didn't know that for a long time until I started studying more about cycle health and periods and birth control. It didn't become as obvious that there are kind of all these factors that need to happen for pregnancy to occur. And it's especially relevant if it was easier the first time or you didn't have to really think too much about it. Can you walk me through kind of your pregnancy journey in the last, I guess, year or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So we decided that we were going to try for a baby after my last world championship, which was in October. So we started a little bit before then, because being pregnant during your world championships wouldn't have made much of a difference at that time. But we really didn't, there was nothing that gave me indication that I had a concern. It was just that because I was 40 and I knew that after 6 months of trying, if you're not pregnant, that you would start down the fertility journey, that maybe I should just get a head start. So I initially started with a Nido app, which is something that you can attach to your phone, and it's a urinalysis that will tell you what your hormone status is at any given day in your cycle. And that really was what walked me on to realizing that all of the training that I had been through, particularly the last year of competition, my hormones had kind of flatlined. I actually had very, very low estrogen. I had very low progesterone, and my peaks for FSH and LH for ovulation were very low. So it was almost like I was moving into perimenopause and didn't even realize it because my cycle, like I said, was normal. And through that, I immediately recognized that there were things that I could do nutritionally that would help me to kind of regain some of my hormonal status. So one thing was, obviously I had finished world championships, so I got a break from fitness, and that was absolutely necessary because your body has to be in kind of a more relaxed mode in terms of training in order to regain your fertility status for that kind of thing. Constantly hitting the go button and having these surges of cortisol and low sleep and high stress certainly play an important role in terms of how your hormones show out or play out on the Nido app, at least. I read a book called It Starts with the Egg, and that was a really good jump off point for me in terms of like what supplementation I could take to help boost both my progesterone and my estrogen. Once we started doing that, about 3 months in, I recognized that my progesterone was just low and there wasn't much I could do nutritional wise that was kind of boosting it. And we're not talking like super low, but low enough that it might have made it difficult for implantation. And that's when I sought out the care for a fertility specialist to see if maybe just adding progesterone to that mix would help, which is what did it. I had one cycle of ovulation timed progesterone, and that was the cycle we got pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of things to consider. Thinking about like the low estrogen and progesterone, the FSH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, kind of not being there. And to your point of when you're in that high stress, go, 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 your body is going to prioritize survival over fertility. It's not, if it's feeling depleted in nutrients, depleted in recovery, absolutely it's going to go, yeah, this is not a good time to get pregnant. This is a time to survive and maintain basic function. It's interesting. What supplements, if I can ask, were kind of part of that process?
Lots. So some of the major supplementation that really affected, I think, my fertility, the top one for me, I think, was iodine, which is a weird micronutrient that you might not know that you're interested in. And I only recognize that because of the book It Starts with the Egg had mentioned that you want your thyroid stimulating hormone to be somewhere below the 1.5 mark, and mine was about 2.6, which is just above. It's still considered normal, right? Like any other fertility specialist would look at that and say this is normal. But then once I recognized that my iodine was low and I started supplementing accordingly, my thyroid stimulating hormone went down, and I ended up. I think that made the biggest difference in terms of fertility. So definitely iodine for me, but that's a micronutrient that you'd want to have tested prior to supplementation. CoQ10, ashwagandha, vitamin C high dosage, NAC, iron supplement for me, but again, based on micronutrient testing, I wouldn't just go take that. Prenatal vitamin, gosh, there were so many. Beet juice. there's so many things that can help.
I'm hearing a lot of things that are going to help with inflammation. And that's what I'm hearing. And things to kind of get your nutrient profile up in general. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And really for the women, it's more about making sure that your egg quality is of a certain standard for the egg to be receptive to sperm, right? So just because you're 40, we're all told that your eggs are what they are and there's not much you can do about it. And we've come to understand that with the proper nutrients, making sure you have good nutrient status, that's actually not very true. You can help your eggs along. So that's something that I think maybe women aren't aware of.
Yeah, I would argue that your quality of life, not your quality of life, the what you're doing with sleep, stress, nutrition, movement is a much better indicator of fertility and egg quality and all those things, and also sperm quality for men as well. If you're not sleeping, you're drinking alcohol all the time, you're not moving, you're not going to have good sperm quality. And so age is not the only factor. And I totally agree with you. We get that like, you're over the hill, everything is terrible. But my experience has, I got pregnant at 37, had my daughter at 38, and I still had the advanced maternal age, all that conversation, but really how healthy you are prior to getting pregnant or prior to going through that process, man, does that make a big difference.
Yeah, I have to agree for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as all the things that you tried, what do you think made the biggest difference?
Truly, I think like I said, the iodine, I think made a big difference. I think vitamin C was helpful in terms of information just in general. And I think the progesterone specifically for me was what really did it. And it's actually kind of frustrating because you have to be careful about who it is that you go to contact in terms of these fertility specialists, because there are some who are adamant that, particularly at my age, that IVF is the only consideration. And so they may not even, I had a provider who refused to write me for progesterone, which, in my case worked out. So I think that if it's something that you're willing to consider and you have a little more time in terms of your timeline of getting pregnant, finding someone who's holistic, who will help kind of nurture your body and what it needs in order to become pregnant naturally, I think is a better option than jumping straight to IVF for many reasons, not the least of which being in cost.
Yeah. And IVF is very rough on the body. I mean, I think if you don't understand the process, it is just a dump of hormones. And you're going to have these extreme side effects, and these, and there's, like, to your point, there may be another option we can try first that's not as drastic or dramatic to your own health and your financial, the bill you get. And progesterone is so important. For people that may not know, progesterone helps prepare for that implantation, thickens the uterine lining, it makes everything nice and ready for that egg to get in there. So you talked about having to step away from competitive training for a little while. What was that like physically and mentally for you?
Honestly, it was such a relief. I have been competing and training for more than most of my life, right? So over half of my life, I've been doing some sort of competitive athletics, and I had really gotten to a point in my training and my career where, not to be boastful, but I had won world championships, a couple of years prior, and really this last world championship for me was more about the experience to be able to go to a foreign country. I'd never been to Paris before, so I was really excited to go to France and see what that was like. So experiencing it with my son and my husband, and being able to do, those things together, and making the medal winning or the competition kind of less so in my mind was a big deal for me. And also because I had gone through so much training, and really the 6 months prior to competition, it felt exhausting. Like every workout was a struggle. I wasn't responding in terms of my training regimen. I wasn't sleeping well. Like clearly there was something wrong, and to eventually realize it was athlete burnout, and both physically burnt out. My body just was done, could not manage the load that I was trying to put under it and the stress I was under. But also just mentally, it was that kind of place in my life where I was like, is this really giving me what I want? So stepping away was amazing. 3 months after competition, my coach, I had not told him yet that we were trying for a baby. And so, he was like, hey, are you ready to compete again? And I was like, absolutely not. So, I think it was a good place to put a pin in it for a while and to move on to something different in my life, another goal or aspect of life that I wanted to achieve or accomplish. And it gave me the opportunity to really think about, what do we want our family to look like? And if we wanted another child, this was a good time.
Yeah. Has this experience changed how you look at kind of training, performance, long-term health, recovery, kind of all those elements?
I wouldn't say it's changed the way I look at it. It's more of an integrative experience, right? So at least for me, when I became pregnant or knew that I was going to be trying to have a child, the training, once I became pregnant, the training is actually easier, not just physically, but also mentally, because there's a focus to it, right? So instead of just going out and saying, I need to be the best. I need to be at the top of my game. I need to try really hard with every workout. I get to listen to my body more. I get to be more responsive to how I'm feeling in that moment. I get to, focus my goals on being as healthy as possible rather than as strong and as fit as possible, because those two goals can sometimes be dichotomous, right? There can be times where you're training for a competition in a way or manner that isn't actually aligned with lifetime fitness or lifetime health. And that's not where I'm at right now. I get to be in a place where I get to worry about how healthy can I be, and how fit and strong can I be for pregnancy and for delivery.
Yeah, I love that. I can't relate at the same level, but being someone that is very goal oriented, training oriented, have had coaches, all those things. I definitely, when I got pregnant, I was like, awesome, I can scale. Like I still moved my body, I still worked out, but if I didn't hit a certain number or didn't do I didn't care.
Right.
Pressure's off. I just think sometimes we don't realize how much pressure or expectations we put on ourselves. And then something like pregnancy, your body is gonna shut you down.
Yeah, big time.
Shut this down. If there was one takeaway that you would give to other female athletes about fertility after years of sport, what would it be?
I would say look into your fertility status sooner rather than later. I really do think that we do a disservice, particularly for women, even in their early 30s, much less 35 and older, by telling them to quote unquote try for a year and see what happens. I don't understand the thinking or logic behind that. It's so easy now and rather cost effective to even order your own panel from LabCorp and find out what your hormones look like. It does take a little bit of studying. You need to know when to get that panel taken, like on which day of your cycle, et cetera, to be able to help, interpret it. And certainly there are people and online communities now, there's even online systems where you can pay into that and find out, and someone can appropriately tell you what your hormone status looks like. I'd say don't ignore burnout because it might not just be emotional. It might not be just, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. This competition isn't feeding me anymore. It could be that your hormones are really in the tank and you don't know it. I don't know enough about cycle timing in terms of training. I never really focused on that for myself, but I know that there are people out there that also can help with recognizing women who have extreme concerns like PCOS, et cetera, that might be also affecting their fitness. So knowing your fertility status at any given moment is obviously beneficial for a number of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even say that just understanding your cycle health in general, right? If you're not having regular periods and you're training intensely, that's a sign that your body is prioritizing that survival aspect and you're not producing meaningful estrogen and progesterone. Because in order to do that, you have to ovulate, you have to bleed for menstruation in order to have your cycle. So yeah, those are all really great, helpful insights. So I wish you the best on your journey. If people want to follow you and kind of see what you're doing, where can they find you?
So I'm posting really regularly now about what workouts I'm doing, and once a week I post about my journey and what it's taken to get here in terms of fertility at @ET_Schelly, SCHELLY on Instagram. I also have a company for nutrition and performance at OPB Performance. So you can find me on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story. I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of women. And guys, make sure to check out Emily, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Thanks, Tierra.
Thanks.